we're deficient in a lot of things. You can be so good at muscular work. Man, I can be so good at putting straight lines in the body. But if we're deficient in all of these items, man, there's a fight that's going on and it's not going to hold and it's not going to stick no matter how great we are at what we do.
Hello and welcome to the Posture Dojo Podcast. My name is Sam. I'll be your host on this postural transformation journey, sharing some stories from my own healing transformation of an 85-degree hyperkyphoscoliosis and speaking with experts from a variety of fields, some that you might expect, some that might surprise you. And today we have a returning superstar from a previous episode here on the podcast, and Erin Myers from a blend of a Pilates and scoliosis approach has opened her eyes to some of the possible hidden origins of scoliosis. And so I'm excited to see where our conversation goes today. Erin, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Sam.
How are you helping people with compromised spine such as scoliosis and kyphosis at the moment?
I have a large studio. It's called Spiral Spine Pilates. It's in Nashville, Tennessee. I've got a staff of 14 currently, and we work from little bitty kids to 82-year-old women and everything in between, from fusions to back bracing to people who refuse to have surgery and just want to handle their bodies on their own. And I never intended to go down this path, and yet here I am 2 decades later.
How did you end up here?
So I have scoliosis. I was diagnosed at age 14 with a 17-degree upper thoracic curve. Not a big deal. I saw a doctor once and I was just ignored. After that, went on to dance with the Radio City Rockettes, got very injured, not with my spine, but with my knees. And the manager said, "You're not going to come back for another year unless you get stronger." And I was like, "This is crazy. I'm crazy strong. What are you talking about?" I just didn't have any stabilizers. I used big moving muscles. And she said, "You need to do Pilates." So wanting to dance with the Rockettes one more year, I did that, went to Pilates, threw knee braces away, got off Vioxx and Mobic and a host of other things, and saw someone's spine move for the first time when I went through Pilates teacher training, not scoliosis training at that point. And it was the first time I had totally ignored the fact that I had scoliosis because no doctor had brought that to my attention. And that was the first of many times of just starting to dabble in the world of scoliosis. And fast forward, I moved to Nashville and started a studio, and a mom with a 9-year-old showed up at my door. She said, "I heard you had scoliosis and you know how to work with it." I said, "Sure, let's try." And within 6 months, I was able to decrease her daughter's curve. Her parents worked at Vanderbilt University, and she said, "I'll do anything that you want," because she was going to take a sabbatical to bring her daughter over to the Schroth Clinic over in Germany to live over there for a while to get her care for her daughter. And her daughter's curves were just like in the 20s at the time, not even that bad. I said, "I don't think you need to take a sabbatical. Like, we can do this." I said, "One of the things I would really like is research." So next week she showed up. She gave me a thumb drive or a zip drive. And at the time, 2 decades ago, and I had hundreds of research articles from everything that had been published in antiquity with the word scoliosis in it. So I spent the next 10 years sifting through back brace research, spinal fusion research, and everything in between. Movement research, really not great research studies, fabulous research studies, and everything in between. And I learned a lot, and it fed my hunger for research and understanding how this came about and how can we live the best life that we can with it. Fast forward 2 decades later, now I'm here, published 4 books, have an app. I have a scoliosis retreat that's starting actually tomorrow at the studio. People come in from all over the world to get care and just learn how to take the next best step. We get teachers that come in to want to learn how to care for their clients. But on my own personal journey, I started noticing with the hundreds, if not thousands of clients that sift through my studio on a monthly-ish basis here and around the world, I started noticing, yes, they have scoliosis, but they all were tender. Like, immune systems weren't great, GI systems were funky, many of them had multiple homeopathic doctors, saw acupuncturists, not like a robust person. And so I started getting intrigued about this, and I started going down the path of wanting to find out more. If there was more around this. And my body I had given birth to two boys within a 21-month time period, and my body was suffering greatly. And so I was searching for my own person on how to make things better and seeing that around my clients. And I was like, I wonder if there's some connection. So in my latest book, I Have Scoliosis, Now What? In chapter 13, I list over 350 research references on what research says about the root of adolescent idiopathic scoliosis. And so let me just preface real quick. So I know, Sam, you've got congenital scoliosis. One of your vertebrae is not quite shaped like the other, to my understanding.
Yes, but I'm not 100% sure that it was from birth. I had there wasn't really any noticeable curvatures in my spine until that 12, 13, 14, 15. And during that time, there were a couple compromises that had happened. I had a recurring sprained ankle and I had that kind of limp going on. I also had a near drowning accident where my ankle was caught in a rope in a very aggressive kind of current downstream. So my one of my legs was quite torn in a certain way. So I had these pretty severe injuries. And then on top of that, I had the computer screen that was just sucking me in 14 hours a day, playing like the birth of the internet in the 90s. And I'm just ignoring the problems of the back, not doing the work, just allowing the collapse to happen. I know something's going on, but I'm just going to deal with that later. I'm going to avoid that work. I'm going to avoid that pain, that struggle. I'm just going to, whatever, I'll deal with it later kind of thing. So that's where, and then on top of that, potential psychological aspects that may have been ingrained or at least caused that to happen, that prevented me or led me away from doing the work. Things that I might have been holding on to, things that were too deep down that I didn't want to go towards. So those are all of the things that I look at for the origination. But because it was such a severe collapse during those years, without much of a counter effect, the vertebrae was wedge shaped. But I don't believe I was born with that wedge shaped vertebrae, but that's where it is. And so I have a fairly structural 85-degree curve. A few vertebrae above and below are pretty rigid for that 85-degree curve part, and the rest is compensated. So that's my situation at the moment.
It's great. And I love hearing that because you've done so much work to figure out possibly what the roots are. And I think everybody needs to do that investigative work.
100%.
And that is, I think, where a big, deep place in my heart wants everyone with scoliosis to go at, because I think people, oftentimes what brings them in to my studio is I've got pain or I've got fear that it's going to get worse, and that's a great place. I'm so grateful that they found the courage to come in. Over time, my desire is that they start digging deeper to figure out the origination, because if we can figure out the origination, we can get to the root of it, but then we can also live a longer life better.
Yes, and avoid all of these consequences that can come down the line. And from you just heard, I don't really have this is exactly what caused it reason, but that doesn't mean that I haven't been able to heal a significant amount of what had happened. But I've gone into each one of those scenarios and I returned to the scene of the crime, I call it.
Yeah.
In that near drowning accident, I've actually gotten a friend to hold my ankle in a river and got into that situation. And it was amazing. I got an amazing alignment through that because I was going back in there with safety. It was under controlled situation, so I could actually get up and breathe if I needed to. It was in a shallower part. But that was quite a traumatic event when it happened. But just revisiting it, being able to reprogram that story, that event in my mind, really healing emotionally as well as physically. And then I look at the ankle, and I've been doing some ankle stretching, and I actually practiced that same effect of spraining the ankle. But now I've built up a lot of strength in that, so I can pretty much roll my ankle and be fine with it because I'll recover and I've got a lot of strength through that scar tissue there. But as I do that, I feel the alignment higher up in the thoracic and the neck as well. And I feel those alignments happening. And then we'll go into the psychological aspect. And when I'm going into that curled up ball and I'm going into that fetal position and I'm letting it all go. And I'm going through the Ho'oponopono, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. When I'm going through those kind of feelings, I feel that emotional healing as well. And I feel alignments happening there as well. So whether it was a combination of all of them, or it sometimes you may not need to know what exactly it is to experience profound healing. I guess that's the message that I'm sharing from that.
I would totally agree. Totally agree. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you said. I think that most scoliosis cases are polycausational, that a lot of things went together at a hard period in one's life, and bam, now we end up with scoliosis. From my healing journey to where I'm at now, real quick, over the last 10 years, I've suffered a lot. My body has, since I gave birth to my boys, my body just really started going downhill, and diagnosed with chronic inflammatory response syndrome, fatigue, chronic fatigue. But chronic fatigue is just, I don't know why you're here. I don't know why you're suffering this, but it doesn't tell you anything about how to fix it or where it's coming from or anything like that. Found out that I had extreme mold toxicity, and we still don't know the origination of where it came from. I ended up I'm still on it, a 3-year deep detox journey. I had a midline for 6 months. I still get IVs often, glutathione IVs. I don't produce enough glutathione. So that has gotten me to be like, okay, why doesn't my liver produce enough glutathione? What's causing all of these things? So I actually just a few weeks ago was diagnosed for the first time. I was ANA positive. So I have an autoimmune condition of some kind. Despite extremely beautiful, healthy eating and sleeping and stress levels and all these other things. So I'm still on this journey. I've had so much healing in the journey. And so my quest continues to seek deeper understanding. And throughout this research that I'm about to share from chapter 13 of my book, my clients that see me often and trust me, and I trust them and they trust me, and in suggesting some funny, weird things for them, I've had them go to this functional medicine doctor that I've been seeing, and they've gotten testing. And many of their genetic SNPs, their genetic variants, are similar to mine. Many of their nutritional values, despite the fabulous eating that they have, are all out of whack. So it's interesting to look at these things. Many of us have really high toxicity levels as well.
I do recall during those years not being aware of as I am now, of the food that I was putting in. A lot of carbohydrates. I think I was having like 14 Wheat Bix each morning. I don't know if you know what Wheat Bix are, but it's an Australian cereal it's just pure grains with the pasteurized milk, which was just not a great way to start the day, to be honest. But so I actually, started putting on a little weight there, but just, definitely carb orientated diet during those years. Not a great nutritional support for a growing spine. And as we learn about the things we need to grow that, I'm definitely prioritizing protein now, and I'm valuing collagen and magnesium and all these things for a great kind of bone support. So what is this research that you're uncovering with these nutritional correlations?
Totally. It's fascinating. So just the first of many, first is melatonin. So many people will think of melatonin and they say, oh, I don't sleep well at night, I need to take this, or I take this and it helps me sleep better. Fascinating research that many people with scoliosis don't produce enough. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Stratagene. Stratagene, STRAT, maybe EGENE, Stratagene, made by Dr. Ben Lynch. If you get your raw genetic data, which you can get from 23andMe or Ancestry.com, not very much money, maybe $100, get your spit in a thing, send it off, and then you bring it. You can get your raw genetic data. You upload that to Stratagene, again, maybe $95 to get it into Stratagene. It will print off your genetic variants and your genetic variables on telling you which of your genes are slow and which of your genes are fast, and how different things in your environment will affect your specific genes. It's a lot. I printed off my eldest son's, he's 15, 124 pages worth, but it tells you like hey, you have this gene. It's 30% slower than the normal population. You probably need to stay away from these foods, and you need to probably take these supplements to make this gene healthier. Super fascinating. My eldest son, they give these big diagrams and they lump in these genes into different cycles. My eldest son, his melatonin cycle is extremely compromised. He has a bunch of genes that just genetically, he just doesn't work. They don't work very well. They're pretty slow. And just take a wild guess if he sleeps well. No, he doesn't sleep well. So you add that in, and my son's a hardcore distance runner. He's in varsity track team, varsity distance. So he's running 10 miles a day. He's super thin. So now we're not sleeping well. He doesn't have scoliosis, knock on wood, please, Jesus, don't let that happen. So I'm fortifying in. How can I help this melatonin cycle function better? So melatonin, it's a piece of the game. Okay, let's go to the next one. Zinc. Zinc is the next one. Zinc is responsible for many things. If you are sick, zinc helps you get better. So if you don't naturally make zinc really well, you're going to get a virus, you're going to get bacterial infection, and your just immune system's going to start to tank. Mm-hmm. Zinc.
Yep. Yeah, I don't get colds too many times these days, but when I have had that coming on, I do as soon as possible macro dose some zinc and some vitamin C early on, as early as possible. Shortens the whole cycle. Exactly. It even eliminates it. Okay, was it even coming at all? Because
that's awesome.
It's not here.
No, that's exactly correct. And so interestingly, I list in this chapter all different foods that are really high. In case you don't want to take a supplement, you can do foods. And oysters have the highest amount of zinc of any food there is. Yeah, we get oysters every Friday night at my house, and we just eat them.
There you go.
Whole family. We take supplements as well, but we just start eating oysters. That's just part of our family tradition now, just to help my boys get as much as they can. Yep. Gut health. Fascinating research on gut health. There are a handful of gut bacteria, very specific gut bacteria, that have an extra amount. They are very prevalent in people that have scoliosis. And when you create a dysbiosis in your gut, a myriad of other immune issues take place as well.
A dysbiosis, as opposed to a symbiosis.
Yes, correct.
Go on, please. Yeah, tell me more.
Yep. So let's see if I can find it. I'm going to read from page 174. Research found that those with AIS had an abundance of the bacteria. I'm going to see if I can say that's right. Previtola, Galleria, and Desulfovibrio in the intestinal and gut microbiome. The more Prevotella that was present, the higher one's Cobb angle. So gut microbiome is pretty easy to change. So probiotics, go through your probiotics at your grocery store, find ones that do not include this, start on probiotics every single day. And there's other things you can do as well.
Start with ones that do not include this, you said?
Because they have an abundance. Research showed that they had an abundance of those bacteria. And the larger one's Cobb angle, the more they had an overabundance of this bacteria.
Interesting. So what's feeding this Desulfovibrio vulgaris?
Exactly. That was way better than how I said it, Sam, by the way. So exactly. So then it brings your mind into being like, what initiated this? I will say in my genetic research, people can have a genetic predisposition towards having certain kinds of bacteria in them. So I'll let you go down that path in your brain another day, Sam, and we can have more conversations on that after you figure that out.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm a big fan of fasting. I actually just did a 3-day fast, and it's allowing the a microbiome to trim the hedges a little bit. Like, hey, God, you're getting a little comfy. I'm making it too easy for you. We're getting types of weeds growing around the place. Things are going on. There's extra complacency going on. I mean, for me, it was just once you're eating, I only eat 2 times a day, 1 times a day sometimes, but even now, like I still sense it's enough or too much sometimes. And so having these fasts regularly just trims back the hedges and also mentally resets my relationship with the food as I start eating again. I'm like, okay, what are we not bringing forward on our journey here? What are we not going to seed the garden with? Because it's essentially a chance to reseed the garden throughout these fasts. One concern I have about probiotics is that I've heard many of them are essentially killed off, all the healthy bacteria is killed off in the stomach acid on the way to the gut.
Correct.
So is there a way around that?
Yeah, I mean, there's different
Or do
fermented.
some of them make it through?
From my research, some of them do make it through. Just because, especially if you think about you're eating kombucha or you're drinking kombucha or you're having kefir or you're having sauerkraut or it's got to make it through the stomach and the stomach acid somehow. Something has to be making it through. I'm right there with you. But that's also where it's one tiny little pill that you take once a day. It's not going to fix everything. We have to be mindful about what we consume. So yes.
Healthy relationship with food. I'm down with that.
Yep. The vitamin B world. Many people with scoliosis, like widely known, widely researched, have methylation problems with folate, B9 specifically, but many other vitamin B issues. They have many issues as well, MTHFR issues. And I found one doctor that went as far, I'm reading this again, one doctor who specializes in methylation goes as far as to say that scoliosis is a physical sign that you have methylation issues.
Okay. Interesting.
So I have methylation issues, did some genetic stuff. I have to take methylfolate every day. I can eat all the greens in the world. I can drink all the greens in the world. My body is slow genetically at taking those, transforming them, so then I can consume the B9 that I take in. Genetically, I just don't really have the ability to do that very well. And
So the definition of methylation I have here is a chemical reaction in the body in which a small molecule called a methyl group gets added to DNA, proteins, or other molecules. The addition of methyl groups can affect how some molecules act in the body. For example, methylation of the DNA sequence of a gene may turn the gene off so it does not make a protein. Changes in methylation patterns of genes or proteins can affect a person's risks of developing a disease. So that would be so something's not being produced in the way it should.
Correct.
Okay.
And this is why strategene is really helpful, where you can get this in the way that they demonstrate it. It's like, oh, it has a little ticker and it'll have the ticker go one way and it'll say, oh, your gene is 30% slower than everyone else's gene. Your gene is 70% slower than everyone else's gene. So many people that have scoliosis, we genetically, MTHFR gene, among others, there are many others, we're slow at taking in what we consume, changing it so that we can actually uptake it and receive the benefit of our folate that we consume in our life. And if you want to read...
Transmuting the energy.
Correct. Ooh, that was a really good way of saying that, Sam. Correct.
Yeah, I've heard that's the reason we're here, is to learn how to transmute energy. And so if we have any blocks, which potentially this methylation sounds like one of the little molecular level block that might be getting in the way of our optimal health, it seems once again the answer is to allow and imagine and therefore instruct more flow in the body.
I would agree. The next one, NAC. This is pretty old research that was out there. Do you know about NAC, Sam?
No, I believe I've heard about NAD.
Oh, yes. I'm getting infusions of that in a few weeks. I'll tell you how that goes. We'll see how that goes. Yes, okay. NAC, not NAD, but I'm all on the board of NAD as well. NAC.
Yeah, because NAD is one of the top longevity supplements right now.
Correct.
From what I understand.
Interestingly, it is also a B vitamin. It's just in
Interesting.
extreme high doses. Oh, that's another conversation for another day, Sam. Anyways, AC, I'm going to read just this. There's a link between AIS and neuroinflammation, which is inflammation within the neurological system of the body. Research on zebrafish, a faithful idiopathic scoliosis model, showed that when supplemented NAC, it was introduced after showed that when this supplement was introduced after scoliosis had already started to develop in the body, the supplement significantly reduced curve reduction or curve progression.
This was a study on zebrafish?
Correct. They put it in, I'm not kidding, Sam. They put it in the water. Once the fish had developed scoliosis, they put NAC in the water and their curves reduced in progression. Immune cells associated with inflammation accumulated at the site of the curvature. NAC is a readily available supplement that has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties and could be safe and easy as immunomodulating therapy.
This is blowing my mind. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I mean, they have straight lines along their bodies, so that's really interesting. I can see they've got the different types of. They're showing the X-rays of the zebrafish with the scoliosis, and
so
okay.
I just put all this information out there. I'm not telling anyone should do it or not. I will say I took NAC for years. NAC is also great for allergies. So when it's allergy season, I give it to my kids. It's like $13 supplement. Super easy, no harm.
Amazing. So it helps with it reduces inflammation in the nervous system.
Neuroinflammation.
Is that what I'm saying?
Correct. Yes.
Neuroinflammation. Yeah.
Yes, you're exactly correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Next one,
Awesome.
omega-3. Many people with scoliosis are very deficient in omega-3s. Again, so think about omega. Actually, in my journey of dealing with my own health, my doctor found that I had a lot of imbalances within my fats, within my omegas, to the point that he sent this like $600 lab off to Germany. I guess this was the only clinic that could do it, to really like tear apart what was going on. And I was like, how fascinating that this is also what's showing is a piece of scoliosis research. When I was younger, I was a ballet dancer and I didn't have an eating disorder, but all dancers, they'll ride that line. Ride that line of being real thin. I did not eat any fat in my diet. And then I was a vegetarian for years when I lived in New York. Oh, I was so unhealthy in New York City. And so now I consume so much fat in so many different healthy ways. And my body just desires it. We eat so much fatty fish. Yep, omega-3.
All those good fats. Omega-6 and 9 as well, or just the 3s?
Mine, the one here, all I have is 3, but I have not done.
They come with
research.
It. Why not?
Totally, for sure. And I'm omega-3, 6, and 9. There's always a delicate balance between all of them, and it's really important to have balance of them. If you're eating French fries and chips all day long, you're going to have an imbalance.
Yeah. Yes. So is there more? Or should we start looking at this?
There's
more. Okay, let's go.
There's more if you're cool with that.
Yeah.
This is a fascinating one. Bone density, vitamin D, vitamin K, and calcium.
Vitamin K. Yeah, I think vitamin K is one of those ones that keeps popping back up on my radar for sure. So now we're talking bone material.
Correct. Bone health.
Support. Yeah.
Okay. This is my jaw dropped when I read this. One interesting piece of research found that 68% of girls between the ages of 12 to 14 with adolescent idiopathic scoliosis had a significantly reduced bone mineral density. There was no further progression of the bone loss from ages 12 to 14. This research suggests that osteopenia developed before the age of 12 in girls with scoli, and that might be the primary source of scoliosis, if not the secondary. So these kids, super deficient in vitamin D, vitamin K, and calcium before age 12, Sam. before age 12. And they think that, and there's an abundance of research. It's not like one research with NAC and the zebrafish. I mean, we're talking when a doctor diagnoses a kid with scoliosis, immediately every single doctor should do a blood test to check their vitamin D levels. It's an almost guarantee it's going to be low, and the doctor should immediately put them on a vitamin D supplement. And this is low hanging fruit. I mean, I'm not even talking a $600 lab going to Germany. We're talking a vitamin D3 lab. And common knowledge. And I don't know why this is done, Sam.
We're putting it out there. We're putting that common sense out there.
I know.
Yeah, vitamin D and magnesium, I think, are chronically deficient across the entire population. But if there's research showing this is especially the case with scoliosis, then let's do something about it.
All right, I have just a few more. Iron, massive iron deficiencies in people with scoliosis. As I was anemic for years. Interestingly, 2 years ago, when my eldest son, Levi, started getting pretty intense into distance running, his coach, great coach, said, hey, I need all the boys to get their ferritin levels checked. And I was like, no problem. Easy blood lab. And Levi's been under intensive functional medicine care for a long time. Me being like a mother who's scared to death of her child getting scoliosis. I'm like, he's going to be totally fine. His iron levels are on the floor.
Okay.
I am wildly shocked. So we do these Hemoplex pills that coach suggested, that he's suggested for 27 years because he's a distance runner coach, and everybody has really great success with this. Levi's on it for 6 months. We check iron levels again. It doesn't move even one number. And I'm like freaking out now. So I'm like, what's consuming the iron that he's eating? Levi's a really healthy eater. I'm like, where's the link here? What is going on? Why can't he consume and uptake the iron that he's been given? So found out that he has Lyme disease. And people with Lyme, oftentimes, I'm going to say this maybe incorrectly slightly, the Lyme consumes the iron.
Interesting.
In addition,
is that kind of like rusting? Rusting is essentially the eating the metal, consuming the metal.
I've never thought about rusting internally. I guess it's possible. So,
because I mean, lime. I'm out in a part of Mexico with a lot of limestone, and there's a lot of rusting going on as well.
Interesting. I don't know. So, in addition, I went through his genetics, and he has, in this melatonin cycle, it said that a lot of these people have a hard time uptaking iron in this genetic cycle. So my mind is like all over the place. So he had to start taking liquid iron. And so he takes it all the time, slowly, bottles of liquid iron. And we're getting his levels up to a healthy level again. But it's shocking. And the interesting thing, I don't have a magic ball, and I don't know if I wouldn't have done lots of negatives here. If I wouldn't have done these things, if my kids would have gotten scoliosis, we won't know. And they're not totally past puberty yet, but we're in the midst of it, and spines are straight. And it's just an interesting thing to contemplate when research shows that all these things are deficient. And I find these in my kids before massive 6-month and 6-inch growth spurt happens. It's an interesting thing to contemplate. I'm like, well, if you can plug these holes before massive growth spurts happen, time will tell. Time will tell. That is iron. 2 more. One is selenium. It's a basic blood test, but you could also just have a Brazil nut. Brazil nuts are insanely high in selenium. Just have a Brazil nut once every few days.
Yep.
Easy. Last one.
Nice.
This one was fascinating. Manganese. Manganese, let's see if I can find it. The researchers say that the genetic variant does not, hold on. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to find it real quick. I'm gonna sum it up in my head because I'm not gonna read the book out loud, the whole thing to you right now. So manganese, they found young children that had scoliosis, like infantile scoliosis. And some researchers, I don't know why they decided to research if this child was deficient in manganese, but they did. And they found that genetically, these children are very deficient in manganese. They gave high doses of manganese to these infantile children, and the scoliosis went away.
Interesting.
And so we had one girl at my studio. She was going through puberty, and she lives in Kentucky, a handful of hours away. So she would come in about once a month, once every 2 months, and her back kept really progressing. And they decided they were going to do ASC surgery, anterior scoliosis correction surgery, so a vertebral body tethering surgery. In the process, someone somehow did a manganese blood work on her, and she was totally bottomed out, which is interesting. Manganese is not something that you would normally think of. Hey, Sam, you've got a manganese deficiency. I mean, it's not something that's commonly talked about. So
no, but it happens to be the 5th most abundant metal in the Earth's crust.
So
it's also an essential trace element that is naturally present in many foods, available as a dietary supplement. It's required for the body to function properly. It's found mostly in bones, the liver, kidney, and the pancreas, and it helps the body form connective tissue, bones, blood clotting factors, and sex hormones.
I mean, the deeper you go into it, the more it's okay. So my goal of putting all this research together, and then I have tests that you can just say, you can hand the book to your doctor and say, hey, can you just run these tests for me? And you can get supplementation. If you supplement, you need to make sure that you're getting blood work again to make sure it's working, and make sure you're not over supplementing. But then the back end of that chapter, I have a bunch of things, every single item about where you can get this stuff in food. And just like I said about the oysters and zinc, maybe this is just something that you put into your family's rhythm. And supplements are not bad. My family's taking a fair amount. Goodness gracious, Sam, I can't wait for the day that I can start to decrease those. But the thing is that once you get those levels to where they need to be, the goal is that food can do this for you.
Yes. And 80% of these cases are idiopathic, which means undiagnosed, which means we don't know, which is why they'll say, let's wait and see what happens. For anyone who's thinking, should I do this? Should I do that? Or can I just do this? Can I just take this supplement and my life will be magically better and my situation will be fixed? Obviously, it's part of a holistic approach, which is looking at all these potential areas. And yes, it may seem like a lot, but I think we really went into the last conversation connecting with that mindset of there's a lot. It's a journey, but it's a rewarding one. It's also an essential one. And you do have to start. And you do have to start somewhere, and you can start in small steps. And these nutritional kind of information that you're sharing are really important to make sure as you're literally transforming your body that it has the materials and the ingredients to reform itself. Our body is naturally reforming. All of our cells in our body are dying and reproducing. We're in this constant flow of that. And I do believe if I'm playing the long game here, I know that my T10 vertebrae is wedge-shaped, but that's not going to prevent me from imagining the expansion of that as I change the mechanical pressures on that vertebrae. I'm not going to think that I'm going to just allow gravity to collapse and make that wedge worse. I can imagine in my mind, by replacing myself physically, that I'm creating the space for that vertebrae to grow and expand. Now, that's the equivalent of I know that's a tall order, literally, but why not? What else am I going to imagine for the next 20, 30 years of my life when I'm doing my physical work, my exercises? Why wouldn't I imagine that? Why wouldn't I integrate that idea into what I'm doing in the body, right? We have a mind-muscle connection in order to imagine that muscle firing. Why not also have that mind-myofascial connection, which is extremely relevant to my journey at the moment as I'm undoing the compensations that were in place from holding the collapsed and compromised posture, and as I'm retraining my mind to hold my body in a new way, creating balance along the way. As I'm doing the nutrition, as I'm taking in all this information from everywhere of learning, okay, this is just, it's becoming who I am in my lifestyle now. It's not work. It's not something that I have to do. I'm not doing it in order that I can just go back and not do something again in the future. Playing the long game is about integrating into your mind, into your lifestyle, into your movement, into your habits, into your thoughts, into your food, all of the stuff that's going to support your best life and your best future into the unknown, in my opinion.
It's beautiful. I couldn't have said it better. And that is what I encourage people along the way to do. It's not a one-stop fix. It's not a pill. It's not a one, it's a lifestyle. And you know what? This is a hard thing to make peace with for a lot of people. But if scoliosis is what triggered us to have a healthier lifestyle, oh man, thank you, Lord, for the curse and the blessing that came from this. And may we be octogenarians and centenarians one day that are still so healthy, blue zone people that are so healthy. And I just can't encourage it more. And I want to say, and by the way, myofascial world, huge fan of it. I get structural integration every month. I've done the 10 series, the 5 series, the 3 series. I've had it done for, gosh, almost a decade and a half. It is vital to my ability to just continue to stand up straight and for my physical work to be able to stick and hold. So, amen, brother, preach it. Okay. I have a suggestion for all parents out there that have kids with scoliosis. And then I have suggestions for people that have scoliosis in general, but people that have scoliosis where their kids do not have scoliosis yet. So people that have parents that have children that have scoliosis, I want you to take chapter 13. I want you to run to your doctor's office and I want you to get blood work now, because it's not a question in my eyes. We're deficient in a lot of things. And Sam, you can be so good at muscular work. Man, I can be so good at putting straight lines in a body. But if we're deficient in all of these items, man, there's a fight that's going on and it's not going to hold and it's not going to stick no matter how great we are at what we do. So parents, go fast, and you're just going to have to drink from a fire hose right now, and you're just going to you're going to have to go supplement wise to get these levels up to where they are. And I would say that I might be overstepping my bounds with this, but things are not going to stabilize until these levels get up to where they get up to. Or it's a watch and wait game. They may stabilize magically on their own because we don't know what stabilized them. I don't know. With my kids, I'm not gonna roll the dice. If I can control my kids growing healthier and better, I'm gonna do that. And parents, there is so much you can do. I'm gonna tell you, just because your doctor didn't tell you that doesn't mean that there's not stuff that you can do. And it also doesn't mean that
it just means they don't know.
That's exactly right. It doesn't mean they're bad.
Yeah.
These are not bad people, but they don't know. And I think if they did know, then they would go. We have doctors from all over the country that refer patients to us. We work virtually. And so we started sending these books and we tagged chapter 13. And I'm like, if you don't even read the whole book, I'm like, please just read this chapter. My deepest desire is that a doctor who's going to see a kid is going to say, you know what? I've created my own blood panel for kids that have scoli. And it's just going to easily check these 10 things. These are easy blood tests to run. Doing genetic testing and stuff, a doctor may feel like that's out of their scope. Maybe, I don't think it is, but maybe they feel like that. They can run iron labs. They can run folate labs. They can run vitamin D labs. These are easy things to run. They can run a zinc lab. These are easy things. So if you have scoli and you don't have children yet, being deficient in these things is going to affect your longevity. It's going to affect your ability to resist disease as you age. It's going to affect your regeneration of things. So just to be able to live well, you need to know this stuff. It's just going to help you
Mm.
live better. And that's what I tell my middle-aged clients. I'm like, I know you're done having babies. And you know what? Praise Jesus, your kids did not end up with scoli. Oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled for you. In addition, when I see scoliosis, I see nutritional deficiencies. So just get some lab work done. It's okay. It's going to help us age better. And then if you have scoliosis and you have kids that do not have scoliosis yet, this, in my opinion, is the golden opportunity for you to change the trajectory of your family, to not give scoliosis to your children, and to stop that generational curse, do I say? To stop it. Run the labs, find them, plug the holes, teach them about nutrition, teach them about food. My kids were such picky eaters, and now they're plowing down oysters, slippery, little boogery, tasting like oysters on Friday nights. What a big blessing I'm giving my children. You have this opportunity to bless your generations below you. So take advantage of that.
Mm. Generational patterns passed down, some physical, some emotional, some cultural, some just traditional. There was a psychosomatic chiropractor called Dr. Stephen Ward who recently came through. I saw him at work diagnosing people based on their generational patterns that he had identified by noticing different imbalances in the spine. Very accurate. He basically read a lot of about 40 different people's family history in front of everyone when everyone was like, yep, without saying it. Like he was doing it live. He did it to myself. He read my kind of family situation pretty well from my back, which is pretty impressive. And so he was all about how these patterns, these wounds, these generational traumas are passed down. And it's not anybody's fault. They're just patterns that are passed from one to another. And the healing, the progression, the way forward is deciding to do something differently than your ancestors. And you've explained that really well. And you've even given the parents the opportunity to do that for their children as they're on their path as well, to say, we're going to do something different and we're going to, patch that leaky boat.
Thank you for bringing up the emotional side. I think it's a side that no one talks about. I could tell you story after story of clients that are very in tune with themselves that got some help in those areas, and people could read their back. They came back and I did scoliometer down their back, and I'm like, what did you do? Your scoli decreased by 10 degrees last week.
Mm.
And they're like,
Mm.
yeah, I've dealt with some stuff from my past. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yes. Along with the physical adjustments, he was actually giving affirmations and confirming, hey, you do your best and your best is enough. Not being enough is a common one, right? That gets reflected in our posture. Maybe a lack of self-love. So he was asking, when was the last time you said to you, I love myself, I love me? So there were certain patterns that he was really putting in there psychologically, and then showing the difference that would happen in the legs just through that psychological balance as well. So certainly something to look into. One conversation I've had recently is that the teenagers who are coming into his clinic were the number one priority for them, or the biggest psychological aspect for them is the appearance, especially when it comes to, hey, you might want to consider a brace and wear that at school. At that age, we're starting to be attracted to and look for mates. It's society, like the high school society. We've got all these kind of like, where do we fit in? What do I look like? We're like really faced with a lot there. How do you approach that psychologically when there's that weight of looking different as a teenager?
Uh, Yesterday I came into the studio, yesterday a teacher came into the studio and started working with one of her teenage clients. And I was finishing up, so I had a few minutes to chat with them. And the teacher informed me that this girl now was getting really freaking out all the time, making micro adjustments at all parts of the day to try to fix, shame is triggered here,
Mm.
fix herself. And the teacher, so much wisdom, she said, So today, we're just moving. We're just enjoying our bodies and we're loving our bodies and we're learning to just love our bodies and the way that we move. We're not doing any scoliosis correction today. And I think that there has to be such a vital piece in the emotional aspect of being at peace with where we're at. And that is a huge burden that a teenager gets to deal with at a young age. And so choices, my staff and I are very careful when parents and children, teenagers come to us asking us advice. Should my kid get a brace? Should my kid blah, 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 blah? And more so than basing it on what we see in the spine, it is how are they emotionally? How healthy and stable are they emotionally?
Yeah, I think a great question is like, how could we teach self-acceptance? How could we encourage our child to have self-acceptance? Because I think it was even Katharina Schroth who said, as soon as you accept your fate, you open up so much energy, you empower yourself to actually live in congruence with that fate. And yes, we can determine and guide our fate, but we are in a physical reality where some physical matter is where it is, and we have to work from that place, and that is essentially our fate in some ways. Now, can we adapt it and change it from there? Yes, I'm 100% open to that. I've explained how I even if I get a nano millimeter of pressure of expansion through that part of that vertebrae that's being crushed, I'm fine with that. If that takes me 10 years, okay, great, let's go. But the acceptance, that self-acceptance, and being able at that age when you're looking at how you're accepted into the world, you're fearful that, am I going to get accepted in this university? Am I going to get a job? Am I going to get a career? Where do I fit in? You're trying to figure out where you fit in, but then you also have this irregularity in your spine. You're looking different. It might be affecting your physical thing. That's a lot to deal with. And so we know that self-acceptance, and I think that's going to be a crucial part of this.
So I don't remember which one of my books I put this story in. So my husband obviously knows that I have scoliosis, obviously knows that I specialize in people working with scoliosis. This is my career. This is what I do. And so one day it was years ago, kids were little, and I was walking around the house in a swimsuit. I don't know why I was walking around the house in a bikini, but I was. And I bent over, I don't know, picking up a kid. I don't know. My husband looked at me and he was like, man, I forget that you have scoliosis. And I looked at him and I was like, this is totally a TMA comment. I'm like, you see me naked. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean you forget that I have scoliosis? And he was like, I just don't even think about it. I literally don't see it. And I was like, I didn't know how to process that. I was like, are you not looking at me? Do you see me? And so I started asking my clients. I told them this funny story. It was so interesting because all of these women, all my clients, they all have scoliosis. You can see it. They're all married. They're lifelong marriages. And I was like, will you ask your husband? Just ask your husband if he sees your scoliosis. Every once in a while, my client will be like, oh, yeah. One of my clients, yeah. My husband will say, you're tipping over. Baby, you're tipping over. And that's it. So our partners don't see it. It's us in our shame that is struggling with this. I had a client that she was in her 20s and she was starting to date this guy. And she said, she came in all frazzled at the lesson. And she was like, Erin, she was like, I have to tell you about this. I was like, what do you have to tell me about? She was like, we've been dating this guy for 6 months. And I was so nervous to tell him that I had scoliosis. So we were at dinner and I was like clammy. She was like, I was sweating. My face was red and hot. And she was like, and my boyfriend was like, baby, are you okay? Are you sick? And she was like, I blurted out so loud in the restaurant. She was like, I have scoliosis. And he was like, okay.
So
he was literally like,
yeah.
5 years later,
Yeah.
they're married. They've got a baby on the way. It doesn't matter. I think
Amazing.
she has like a 75-degree
Yeah.
curve. Like, it's fine. And
Yeah.
it's this body dysmorphism. It's a real thing that we struggle with, but it's going to feel even more body dysmorphic if you don't talk to people. You have to talk to people about this. Friends, find practitioners, talk to Sam, talk
Mm.
to me, talk to
Mm-hmm.
a boyfriend, a girlfriend. They're
Mm-hmm.
not going to see it. They love you for who
Mm-hmm.
you are. I promise
Mm-hmm.
you. And they're not going to not be with you because they're worried that like your offspring are going to have scoliosis. Like it doesn't cross their mind. They don't care. They love you for who you
Yeah.
are.
So that's one of the big reasons why I have the free Posture Dojo community, to have these type of conversations so that there is someone you can talk to. I do want to share those years, because it was at the top of my mind from when I stopped ignoring it after those years on the computer, when I realized, oh, okay, this is serious. It was on the top of my mind. I'm like, okay, this is bad. I look very different. I would avoid taking my shirt off at the pool, at the river, wherever. And what else? I mean, I wasn't properly working out, so I wasn't building a lot of muscle. I didn't have a physicality that I was proud of either. And I think anyone would benefit by building a body that they're proud of, that they can see that they're changing their body, even if they have the curve. Building a physique that they're proud of will help both mentally as well as physically. So that should happen anyway. But back to that kind of concern, that insecurity, that I would take off my shirt. And even, it hasn't happened in the last few years, but even as I've been on the corrective path and I haven't had shame about it, I'll get kids who come out like, what's wrong with your back? Because I have an 85-degree curve in there. It's pretty much a right angle in the middle of my back. So it's when I'm bending down. And I remember that's the other thing. Like when I would avoid bending down one way to hide it. I would try to squat down without revealing the curve, because it's not often visible. But then other people, they would say, oh, wow, you have such a wide back. Wow, what do you, like, you work out? And I'm like, okay, that's I didn't expect that. And then in our head, we think everyone is looking. And I know in my case, a lot of people do actually look, right? Because I can't hide it in some ways and in some positions. If we're hanging out on a dock and everyone's got their shirts off and I've got to bend over to do something, like there's no way I can hide these things. And people do see it, and what effect does that have on my life? Not much anymore. It actually doesn't, because I know that my journey is my own. I've accepted my fate. I've accepted that what I've, like, my self-image is determined in here. It's not there. So even if they were to be like, that's different, it's got no effect on my life at all. And the work that I've done now, I'm proud of my structure. I'm proud of my body. And that's been love. That's been healing. That's been the work, showing up and doing these things and prioritizing it, not ignoring it. And it's that which now, wherever, whatever, I don't have the shame around it. And now I'm putting it on the internet and showing millions of people what it is, because that act, that freedom from shame, gives other people in a similar situation to do that as well. And being like, yeah, we all are different. We're all on our own journeys. Some of our journeys are more visible and you can see it. And that's where I'm at with that. And each teenager does have to navigate their own path. What would I say to that? I would say the more you focus on loving yourself, and there's a great quote, if you want to learn how to love, then love the hardest thing. Like, think of the hardest, like the thing you hate the most, and love that. Right? If you want to learn how to love, think of the hardest thing to love and love that. Right? The thing that you just hate the most, and you're just like, all right, I'm going to love that. If there's a part of you, and if that part of you is some sort of physical appearance that you hate in yourself, then focus on loving that. Bring love to that area. Pay attention to that. Forgive, say sorry, build trust, build a healthy relationship with that part of your body as soon as possible, because that will open up a beautiful future, a beautiful state of being. It will create and naturally promote healing. Your mind will promote a more healing and beneficial state in your body as opposed to a toxic, corrosive type of state.
Beautiful, Sam. It's so important. I think the physical is very important. Doing muscle work, fixing the insides nutritionally, figuring out genetics. I think that's only 49% of the journey, though. I think 51% is emotional. It is. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to figure out what you need to do to have that be great. Teenagers, having 2 teenage boys in my house right now, sometimes as a parent, as much as I want and I know what they need, I gotta find people to come in and love on them. So as a parent, if you're noticing your child's there, talk to a coach, get a friend, get a pastor, get a Pilates instructor, get somebody that can regularly love and feed into them. They need a community. They need a community.
Mm.
They need a team. Put them on a swim team, get teammates, put them on a running team. Just get a team, get people who are going to love them through the good, the bad, the ugly, because those teenage years, those are gnarly. That's hard. Sam, I'm super glad I'm past my teenage years. I don't know about you, but it's hard. You just need a team to get through it.
Yeah. Teams, amazing. Community, that's where we have a human mind to other human minds. It's one of those places where we find infinite reflection. If we're just reflecting back and forth in our own mind, we can end up in all kinds of places. When we reflect to a higher source of greatness and goodness, we reflect to other sources of physical love and support around us. I think that's the best way up.
Amen, brother. Preach it. It's good,
Okay,
Sam. I love you preaching it.
Our shared direction, upwards and onwards.
It's exactly right. It's exactly right. I love chatting with you, Sam.
Okay.
I've thoroughly enjoyed the last 2 times that we've chatted and have thought about them greatly. I'm very grateful for what you're doing for the scoliosis world and just getting out there and preaching and loving on them. We need more. We need more of you, Sam. Keep doing it.
Likewise. I'm very happy to have you on the podcast again, blazing the trail into some of these research, piecing together, connecting these dots that are left unconnected no more. So thank you very much, Erin. Let us know, where can we get in touch with you? Let's say we want you on our team, our healing team, our physical transformation team, our nutritional, emotional, physical transformation. How do we get in contact with you, and what ways can we work with you?
Yeah, spiralspine.com. It's the easiest way. We've got a new website that's coming out in January to make life really easy, to help overstimulated scoliosis minds very easily take a step forward. And we teach people virtually and in the studio on 7 days a week around the world. I have a teacher that's going to China in a handful of months to go teach some workshops. We teach internationally as well. We have scoliosis retreats that happen a few times of the year. If you're like, I really need to be with people that have scoliosis because I feel like I'm an orphan and I'm all alone. We have people that come to the studio and you'll make friends. You'll notice that you're not alone and you'll hear their stories and you'll move together and you'll make a plan on how to go forth and continue this.
And how do you describe the process? Pilates is catching a lot of attention, a lot of steam right now in terms of a kind of a movement. As people, I think, they've done some yoga, but I feel like especially amongst females, there's certainly a resurgence of popularity in Pilates. And then can they do it at home? And what type of equipment should they have at home to effectively do Pilates?
Yeah, Pilates, I think, is more beneficial than yoga for people that have scoliosis, albeit I'm not bashing yoga and scoli. I do yoga every week. I love my yoga time, but there's the big aspect of proprioception is why I think that scoliosis and Pilates are a match made in heaven. Many people with scoliosis have a really decreased awareness of where they are in space. One of the teachers was teaching me the other day and she was like, hey, Erin, I need you to just correct yourself and come out of your scoli. And I did. She took a picture of me. I was a solid 6 inches off. And I was like, that is so embarrassing that I couldn't do that. And it's scoli is so complex. But when you have eyes on you, but more importantly, when you have equipment, it'll give you that feedback to push, to pull with resistance. I love you work with resistance a lot, Sam. And I think it's so vital versus us just being in space and attempting just in space for space to give us proprioception on where we're at. And it's not a good indicator. Be against a wall, be against a floor, be against a reformer. Anyways, we work with people that literally have a mat, and I tell them to go get some washcloths, and they have their water bottle in hand, and that's fine. More clients that work with us more and more virtually, they end up buying equipment at home. And I've got it even on my website, and maybe on Instagram I have the link as well. I don't remember at this point. I even have an Amazon shopping cart that has all these things. I'm like, if you have $5 to spend, great, get this TheraBand. If you're like, I want to spend $1,500, I'm like, great, you can get a reformer, and you can even fold it up into itself and put it in your closet. I have one client she's an attorney and works in Washington, D.C., and she just had a virtual lesson with me about 2 years ago to just check and see, had scoliosis, wanted to have a lesson with me and check how it is. Now, she has a lesson with me between 1 and 4 times a week virtually. She will have a lesson with me when she's in a hotel room, when she's in her condo in California, when she's in her apartment in Washington, D.C. And it is, I never know what I'm going to have. There's going to be springs on a wall. There's going to be a reformer. There's going to be a TheraBand. She's going to be in a gym with weights. She's going to have a fit ball. She's going to have a Bosu ball. And she has fallen in love with movement and playing with as many toys as possible. And so I just commend her. And then whenever she flies in from town into Nashville, she gets a lesson with me. And I'm like, you're so great. Way to go, and just like grasping this. And so there's so many ways you can do it. It can be with you in a washcloth. It can also be as creative and as fun as you can possibly make this. So yeah.
Amazing. And play is an amazing kind of idea, I think, to close with, because with play, we learn better. We actually adopt the movements better. We're more likely to do it again. And that's it. That's the key. This is a long game, and a game is playful. So learning how to play with these movements and getting obsessed with that. And I think your energy, being obsessed with what's going on here, is contagious. This optimistic, we're gonna do something about this situation, in itself is carving a path of healing for so many people. So thank you for that. I honor you for that.
You're welcome. And last thing, I've been working on a certification program, an online certification program for scoliosis, and I hope that it'll be ready in the spring. There's a lot going into it, and I have a teacher that's been helping me get words to what we do, and I had a meeting with her 2 days ago to help pull these words out about what we actually do. And I said, what's interesting, the first time I put these concepts to words, I said, the end result of all of this is that we have peace with our bodies, and we just fall in love with movement, and we have this childlike behavior where we just are like, I wonder if my body can do that. Let's check this out. Hey, look at that. Let's try this out. And then it shifts the whole mindset of, there's a problem, you are a problem to fix, to just this levity and this joy of movement and life. And then the scoliosis, it just falls away. And then we have this just higher quality life in general that we wouldn't have unless we had scoli. And I think that's the difference of, instead of saying, I need you to do these exercises 30 times a day, and if you don't, your scoliosis is going to get worse. Like, that's hard. That's hard. And instead, we change that mindset to joy and playful and intrigue and have these childlike behaviors again.
And to remember our childlike behavior, to literally remember that into us now. Somewhere along the way, we got interruptions and compromise, and things happens and blocks and limits. Like we haven't gone there. So starting on the floor and these crawling and these playful movements, often times it is remembering. It's not even about learning something new. It's about remembering to do things that we haven't done in a long time. Play is an amazing one.
As we were having this lesson, I looked over in the corner, and there was a 77-year-old woman having a lesson, and her instructor was having her get down on the floor in all fours and getting up and getting down on the floor and getting up, getting down on the floor, playing on the floor with rollers and balls and getting up. And it's so important, going back to childhood. You're so right, Sam.
There it is.
Yep.
All righty. Erin, thank you very much for coming on and sharing so
You're so
much
welcome.
amazing insight and energy. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Leave a comment on the episode if you found value in it. How could you not? I think we've shared some ancestral and eternal wisdom here. So thank you very much for tuning in. See you all in the next one.